Hey everybody, Steve Cunningham here. Welcome to Cooking on the Weekend. So I just took advantage of a great special at my local grocer, $1.49 a pound on pork butt. I'm sure there have been some specials like that over the last couple of years that I've missed. I personally haven't seen that price or price that low for pork butts in, oh gosh, probably at least 6 years. So definitely want to take advantage of it. I picked up two. The combined weight was 21 pounds and nothing is going to waste. What I've got right here is the product of breaking that down minus the bones. I've got the bones in the refrigerator. I'll be using those for stock later. All right, so I'm going to go left to right here, what we've got. So right here, I just ground up the fat cap, with the skin and everything, all the trimming, all the fat that I trimmed off. Pretty much anything white went into the grinder, and I made a few bags of this. So this is not lard. It's not there yet. It hasn't been rendered down to fat. What I like to do is not render it all at one time. Some of this is going to be used with a purpose that would be better served just the way it is. Mixing with, like, let's say some ground chicken breast or another type of lean meat you could do. I could mix some of that in with pork loin if I wanted to make like an 80-20 ground mix. So some of this was going to go to that, but I did take one of these 3 packs that I put together and I rendered some, and in the end I've got what is now kind of referred to as like pork panko or pork breadcrumbs. Because this is ground, everything in here, when you render it down, you do get all that great fat like you normally would. But instead of having those big chunks of, what just looks like fatty gristle or something like that, you end up with what, on the top of the oil, what looks like just ground meat. It's the skin and probably some tendon or something like that. But you basically, once it's done, you just strain off the fat. You're left with that meat. Just pop it on a piece of parchment paper, put it into the oven, and bake it till you got a nice golden brown. You can use it for a wide variety of things. Anything you see a recipe for that calls for ground up chicharrones or pork rinds, this will work for. From what I understand, it's keto friendly. I don't do the keto diet, but I have heard quite a bit from different friends who do. And so this is definitely something that you're probably familiar with that could use. It has a little bit of a kind of a light bacony flavor, and it's got a great crunch. And so nothing's going to waste. So starting with the fat and the skin. Then for the bits and pieces, the trimmings, that sort of thing, made probably about an 80-20 mix of just ground pork butt. And I've got 5.3 pounds of that. And the rest is the bigger pieces of meat that didn't have a lot of intermuscular fat. I gave these really a very good trim. Pretty much all the trimmings ended up over here. I'm going to be over time using this mostly for things like bulgogi. I will, partially thaw them out and just do very, very thin slices. I've done this before where after it's kind of thawed out just a little bit, you can run it through the deli slicer. A great way to quickly get a lot of awesome thin cut pork. But I've got 10 pounds of it, so I'm sure there'll be more than a few experiments. So 21 pounds, I don't know, the value of this, if you were to go out and buy freshly ground pork butt and the big chunks of more lean portions of that pork meat that can be thin sliced for things like bulgogi or a wide variety of things, at minimum you're paying $5 a pound. Here I've got just under 15 and a half pounds. Not a lot of cash value in the pork fat and skin, that stuff, but there's absolutely cooking gold value here. I'm saving these separate. I want to be able to break this down later. I will use this, I'll combine this with ground chicken, some other things when I'm cooking later and need to have a little more fat. So if I'm wanting to make something with a ground chicken that's, that I ground myself, it's probably about 93-95% lean. I'm not exactly sure how lean chicken breast is, but I'll probably end up doing a 75-25 mix for doing some chicken burgers. So that'll get mixed in just as it is. And then I'm just gonna make some really awesome soup a little bit later. So got probably the equivalent of 65, 70 bucks worth of stuff. Bought it for about $30. Just required a couple hours of breaking things down and a meat grinder. All right. So if you want to save money, you don't have to be a great cook. But if you have a meat grinder, it'll help. All right. You all have a great day. Thanks for swinging by.